Hi, I'm Tyson.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Adam. And we're the Gamesmiths, and we're here to learn how to play Mazers. To kick us off, Ryan's got the rules.
All right. Mazers, the board game. So we have the objective is to build a path from your home base to your home base to your opponent's home base. You have two blockers to disrupt and block your opponent's path. The first player to reach their opponent's home base and remove all their walls from the board is the winner. To play, you roll dice, you move blockers, you move your wall pieces, you move your mouse, and then you pass your turn. So we'll go over all those in a little more depth, but that's basically it. So the point of the game is, like I was saying, to get your mouse from your little end zone over here into your opponent's end zone over here, while your opponent's trying to do the same thing. To do that, like I said, you have two blockers. There's obviously a two-player game, and everything's symmetric. So we got red has a white and a black blocker. Blue has white and a black blocker. Then you have your wall pieces, which are the ones off to the side here, and each player has 12 of those. So what you're going to do on your turn is you're going to roll the dice, and you have a black die and a white die. So I got a 6 on the black die and a 2 on the white die, which means I get to move, if I'm a red here, I get to move the black blocker 6 spaces. The blocker moves, essentially, kind of always has to have one peg in common. So when it moves, let me get the blocker movement up here. Exactly. So blockers are moved according to the color die, side to side or perpendicular, but not parallel. Blockers may move backwards. So blockers can move side to side. Let me see.
This means just jumping that peg there.
Or perpendicular. So side to side would, I think, be
180 degrees around that thing.
Right.
And the other would just be 90 degrees.
Or perpendicular, yes.
But you can't.
But not parallel. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And this
basically, So basically, they are allowed to pivot, essentially. They have to stay. You kind of have to stay on this thing, but you can go like 1, or you can go 1, and then 2. So to move this guy 6, I would go 1, 2, 3, or I could even go 3, 4, 5, 6, and just kind of.
So you can hop walls, essentially. I mean,
Well,
if you're not directly.
Yeah, if you're not directly going over them, like
You're
you
jumping
can't.
a peg, not really a wall, right?
Yeah, so if you go,
Yeah.
yeah. So I believe so.
So, like,
yeah.
if
So
you were
can
in this
pivot.
space, you couldn't obviously hop over to that one.
Correct. Like you couldn't do anything through here or through there, and you couldn't turn from here into here and go across that way. So it kind of stops you from crossing ways that you can't go. Well, I guess though you could go from here to here. So I wonder if that's. So it says here, blocker movements. They can pivot on a pin or move in a straight line, but each move must have one pin in common, so no jumping. They can also move back and forth along the same spaces, but can't end up in the same places that they started. They cannot land in safety zones, which we'll show you in a second. But part of that is so they can't go in the home base, and they can also not land between 2 red pins. So you can't have a blocker here. So it basically prevents you from stopping someone from even getting out of their base. So like this would be an illegal move because it's in between 2 red, but this would be okay because it's in between a red and a black. They cannot land in the safety zones between the 2 red pins or in the square in front of an opponent's path, and we'll go over that in a second. However, a blocker can close the opponent's path. If the opponent has to move to if it does close the opponent's path, the opponent has to move to the other end. So I'll go over building a path. So first we'll move our blocker. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for that guy. We'll get him out there. And then this is going to do 2, so I guess 1, 2 to move this one there. And then I'm going to add up my 6 and 2 to get 8, and that means I get to move 8 of my wall pieces.
Whoa.
Move or place 8 of my wall pieces. So I'm going to pick one side or the other. I guess I'm going to pick this side, and I get to put down 8 of these. And I have to put them down in a way that's going to form a path that gets my mouse over into the blue zone there. So I have to build kind of symmetrically. I can't leave one side behind, so I can't just keep going like this and building walls like this. I'm trying to make a path for my mouse, so I'm going to put one there and then one here. And then I got to decide if I want to go in or out with my path. So I'm going to say I'm going to go in this way, so I'm going to put one here. And now I'm making this path for my mouse. So I've got 3 down, and then 4, whoops. And then there. And then 5, 6, 7, and I can kind of decide, what I want to do here. I guess we'll just go 8. So now I have this path made out of 8 of these blocks for my mouse, and I move my mouse to the end of the path, and now I'm done with my turn. And then the blue person is going to go. They'll roll the dice 6 and 2 again, so they want to try and move, out to block me, and whatever.
The black one, right?
Well, the white one gets to move 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then so this one gets to move. I'm just guessing out there, and then this black one gets to move here, and then blue will do kind of the same thing. Right. They'll start building out their path. But in the interest of time, we're just going to keep building out red's path. So red keeps building out their path, and blue is going to keep moving their blockers over to try and block it. So we'll just set this one here, let's say for now. So I'll build out this path kind of totally here. So now, once I get to this point where I've put down all my wall pieces, let's first talk about the safety zones outside here. So one thing that you can't do is you cannot put your blocker in a way that basically doesn't block your opponent, but kind of screws up their next move no matter what. So with my mouse here, you're not allowed to place your blocker here. Blue is not allowed to place their blocker here, here, or here. So just my hand's not in the way. So in this square, basically in front of the mouse here, they can't place their blocker like that. If they can get their blocker here to exactly cover it, they're allowed to do that. But they're not allowed to just kind of put it here, so I can't actually move, but I also am not blocked.
But you could potentially move.
Well, I
this
couldn't
way
because
right?
because I'd have to, if I wanted to turn this way, I'd have to
you're
place
right.
a piece
Okay.
here and here to make that
Yeah.
turn, and I couldn't do that. But I'm also not blocked, and so it just kind of like.
Because when the blocker gets
Right.
taken up,
So,
there's an empty
yeah,
space.
so essentially-
But you can put it right in front of.
Right.
Okay.
If you can get it there to close it perfectly and shut it down like that, then you can do that.
And then, so do you have to move the blockers every time you roll?
You
so,
do.
like on
They
the
can't-
next turn, it would.
Have to move
somewhere.
again. Yes. But so we're gonna let's actually keep going. So those are the safety zones just to do that. So then let's say I'm rolling with my mouse, and now I'm at the point where I've used up all my wall pieces. Then I'm going to start taking wall pieces off the end here and pulling them out. And so then I'm going to come up here
Okay.
and here to keep building out my wall, and I'm going to pull these guys off and keep building out like this. And then I get to this point, and blue comes in, and blue blocks me. And so then what I have to do, so my mouse goes here because that's the end of my maze, but then blue blocks me. So what I have to do is I have to take my mouse and I have to put them at the other end. And then when my next turn starts, I now have to build out this way and kind of turn my mouse around. You know, and now this is the back of my mouse, or you know, or whatever. And I keep moving my mouse that way since I got blocked off here, and so it's just kind of a trying to move your pieces to block them in and make them turn around while also building your wall out. And then, like they said, eventually you're going to, you know, build into your opponent's safety zone here, and you'll move your mouse in and win the game, or you'll move your mouse in, and then what you have to do is keep rolling until you've picked up all these pieces that are still making your path. So, you know, ignore those. I'd have a full path over here, and then have to roll, and let's say, you know, I got snake eyes, I would only get to pull 2 of these pieces off, and then I would have to pass turn back to blue, and blue would get a chance to win before it got back to me, and I roll, and of course I'm going to roll at least 1, and now that that's off, and now that my mouse is in, and I've picked up all my pieces from my path that got my mouse in, the game's over and I've won.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So, a couple things you cannot. The kind of the real important things to remember are basically the blocker movements and how the blocker is allowed to move. So once again, they can pivot on a pin or move in a straight line, but each move must have 1 pin in common, so no jumping. They can also move back and forth along the same spaces, but can't end up in the same place they started. So you do have to move it every time. It can't go back.
But you can go forward and back to waste a couple moves
Correct.
to then perfectly land in a block.
Yes, yes, you can waste a move if you want. You just can't end up in the same space you started. Cannot land in the safety zones. So those are these red, or that's what we discussed about the mouse there and the safety zone. Between 2 red pins, 1 is fine. So here is okay, but here is not. Or land in the square in front of an opponent's path. So that's what we were talking about. The square in front of the opponent's path is where you can't land. However, if a blocker can close the opponent's path, the opponent has to move to the other end and continue building from there. Only 1 end may be closed per turn. So you can't, if you can figure out some way to get both blue blockers to block off the path completely, you're not allowed to do that. You can only block off 1 to force the person to go the other direction. Blockers cannot be used as wall pieces, so either you or the enemy, you can't use your blocker as a blue wall piece if you're the blue player. If the blocker gets trapped or cannot move the amount shown on the die, skip movement and continue the rest of the turn. So it's possible your blockers get trapped by other blockers, other wall pieces, they just get cornered in and they can't move, then they can't move. So any questions?
No,
No, I think I
Got it? Got it good? Cool.
pretty simple.
All right, that's that. We'll see you in the game.